A very common question that we get asked is, can I file a DBA for my psychological corporation? In today's video, I am going to talk to you about whether or not a psychologist in California can file a DBA, a doing business as, on behalf of their psychological corporation. Hi, my name is Andrew. I'm the managing attorney here at Mulai Law, where we help entrepreneurs just like you start your businesses without having to deal with the complicated legal forms. Our done-for-you service is backed by over 2,800 plus 5-star Google reviews, and we can help you start your business too. The purpose of these videos are to provide you with as much guidance and clarity in the beginning stages of starting a business. So if you haven't already, please make sure you hit the like, subscribe, as well as the bell notification so you don't miss out on any future videos. It's always recommended that prior to doing anything in regards to starting a business in California, in order to stay compliant, in order to make sure that you fully understand the process, always speak with a professional. And so with that side note out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about whether or not a psychologist who registers a psychological corporation in California can apply and register a DBA. So if you're not too familiar with what a DBA is, it's also known as a doing business as, also known as a fictitious business name. Basically, how a DBA works is it allows you to market and display your business under a different name other than the name that was registered at the time of incorporation. The reason why a DBA is one of the most popular options when it comes to a psychological corporation is because the naming requirements associated with the filing of a psychological corporation in California is very strict. What I mean by this is when filing a psychological corporation in California, the initial business name that's filed with the Secretary of State as well as the Psychological Licensing Board must include specific words like psychological, psychology, psychological, psychologist, psychology consultation, psychology consultant, psychometry, psychometrics. Other words include psychometrist, psychotherapy, psychotherapist, psychoanalysis, and psychoanalyst. The words that I just mentioned previously are words that must be used in the business name. Now, keep in mind that you don't have to use all the words in the variations, but you must at least use one. Because of this strict naming requirement when it comes to a psychological corporation, many psychologists do not want to advertise, market, and display their business under a name that contains one of these words. And the best solution for this is a DBA. A great example of this is, say for example, psychologist Anne wants to be able to operate and maintain her business under the name Healing Minds. Due to the strict name requirement, she would have to incorporate the name and register with the Secretary of State using the name Healing Minds Psychology, or one of the other variations that I listed previously. However, psychologist Anne does not want to have that word psychology in her business name. She just wants to have Healing Minds. In this case, she would be able to file a DBA, but the process of filing a DBA is different than filing a typical DBA for a more general business like an LLC or a general corporation. What I mean by this is Anne is going to need to initially file and form the psychological corporation with the Secretary of State using the name Healing Minds Psychology, or of course one of the variations of that word. Once she's submitted the application with the Secretary of State, she will then receive her company documents. And once she receives her company documents, she'll then be able to move forward with filing a DBA on behalf of her company. Now, unlike a typical DBA, which is filed with the Secretary of State, Anne is going to need to file the DBA with the Psychological Licensing Board. This is a step that's commonly overlooked. Typically what happens is a psychologist will file the DBA just with the Secretary of State. But in order to stay fully compliant, Anne must file the DBA with the Psychological Licensing Board. Once the Psychological Licensing Board approves of the DBA, she will then be able to market and display her name under just Healing Minds. Her company name will no longer have the word psychology in it. Now Anne is happy. Now she's able to begin marketing her business under just the company name Healing Minds. Keep in mind that if Anne did not file the DBA with the Psychological Licensing Board, she would only be able to operate and display her company name under Healing Minds Psychology. That word psychology will have to be there in all of her marketing, all of her displays. Additionally, she is going to want to make sure that she files some sort of notice with the Secretary of State to notify them that she will be operating her business under Healing Minds and not Healing Minds Psychology. Failure to do any of these steps may lead to compliance issues down the road. And so in order to mitigate these risk factors, you're going to want to make sure that you speak with a professional who can help you better understand how a DBA for a psychological corporation works. If you happen to enjoy this video, please make sure you hit the like, subscribe, as well as the bell notification so you don't miss out on any future videos. It's time to invest in yourself. It's time to rise.